channel. My name's Adrian. Today I'm taking a look at Sepulchre of Dusk, which is a first level adventure for Shadowdark. A few weeks ago I was asking for recommendations of starting level adventures that would be good to take completely inexperienced players, or even experienced players, but more importantly the first ones, and put them into an adventure setting for a sort of one-shot to bring, say, new players into Shadowdark. Several people in the comments and subscribers recommended I take a look at the Sepulchre of Dusk. This is a first level adventure for 4 players only and designed to be run at conventions and last up to 4 hours. Sounds perfect, doesn't it? Before I get into that then, let's just show you where you can pick it up from, and then I'll take you through the book itself and the review. So I'm going to start off with something really good here. So here we've got the link to Drive-Thru RPG. It's PDF only, and it's coming at £4.45, which is, what's that? So it's on sale at the moment. It's about $6.50 US, somewhere like that. But what it does, I'll just open this and I'll show you what it includes. So you have got 6 character sheets in here. You've got all the VTT maps that you're going to need, a Games Master's VTT map as well as the players. You've got some low printing version of the maps as well, low version print of the rulebook without any pictures and designs in, and then a normal hyperlinked rulebook, all included for that. So let me just close that. And so it's a 36-page book. Plot's irrelevant, but we'll talk about the plot. I'll explain to you later why the plot is actually the worst part of this. So life is hard for clans in the world, and just a few days before a wedding, basically what happens is the goblins come in, they kidnap the bridegroom. So as players, they're asked, any adventurers, can they go and rescue the bridegroom? That's your adventure, that's your plot hook. Yes, you have to go and do it because it's a one-shot, because if they say no, or we're not interested, then the adventure's out. But say you've got 6 pre-generated characters designed for 4. If one person dies, at least you've got a couple of spares. I've shown you what's included, but it just tells you here a fully detailed dungeon, which is easy to use. It's a very well detailed dungeon, fully bookmarked, hyperlinked digital version of the book, a low ink art-free version of the book, set all the separate maps for player, games masters, and VTTs, and 6 pre-generated characters at level 1. Absolutely ram-packed, value for money. More importantly, does it actually do what it says on the tin? Is it going to allow you to have this incredibly good adventure for 4 players? You're going to get my thoughts as we go through it. It can't be bad, can it? Because the camera's on. And I wouldn't be recording. I'm not very good at putting the camera on for things that I don't like. But I've ran this several times with different groups, from experienced and unexperienced groups. Every time I've run it, bar the first time, and I'm going to give you the hints and tips why you can get this within 4 hours. I'm going to tell you what I did wrong, or what my players did right, maybe towards the end, and how you can avoid to make sure it doesn't run over the 4 hours. Here's the introduction. So here's the front cover of the book, which is fantastic. It really does cover what is going on, because there are passages like this in here. So before I get into that, if you're a player and you want to play this, now's your time to go. You're not allowed to be here. If you're a games master and you want to run this, stick around. You're gonna want this in your arsenal of books to run for first-time players and experienced players as well. Let's throw those in because I've run it with experienced players. If you're a player and you've never run an adventure before and you want to start one, stick around. This is something that's, because of the layout of the book and the way the adventure is done, it's 18 rooms, and you're going to get an evening's worth of entertainment out of this, or an afternoon, depending on when you're going to set your adventure. I think this is something that an inexperienced games master would run very, very well. Okay, so that's it. In or out, now's your time to stay or go, so to speak. So let's just then go into the front cover of the book. Front cover of the book just details the map, and as you can see, it's got from room 1 down to the bottom all the way up to 18. So there's not a lot in here for 36 pages, you'd think. However, the way it's written, because this adventure has lots and lots of little mini puzzles and a story arc that's actually going on within here. So as you are looking to rescue the bridegroom, what the players are doing is they're not going into the entrance hall with the goblins. They are doing the back entrance because there's around about 300 goblins, and 4 first level characters shouldn't try to take on 300 goblins, or maybe not. They're probably not suited to negotiate either. So they're coming in through the back entrance, which is an entrance that hasn't been disturbed or checked up for 200-300 years. They are aware of it, so you've got that reason to go in here. And then as they go in through the first room, because I'm not going to really spoil the adventure because there's some great surprises in here for both the players and the games master. But the fundamental thing we've got is, as they go in, they've got 2 ways in out of the first room. One's into some water and one is dry. And then we'll just kind of separates out. Well, that's how it's run every time I've run it. Those that go down the dry route stay on the dry route. Those that go on the wet route tend to stick. They're like, well, we're wet now. Let's just carry on getting wetter. And eventually they'll go through all the way through it and end up at point 18. So that is, as you can see on the map, the jailers, and so it's really well laid out between doors, closed doors, secret doors, statues, etc. Right hand side here, we've got the main creator here, which is Scott Craig, whose words, cartography, and layout. There was only 2 other things on Tabletop RPG for him, so I don't know whether this is the first thing he's ever written as a full adventure. If it is, congratulations, it's a good one. We've then got 2 pages of plot, which we've covered. Go in the cave, rescue the human. That's it. That's your plot. We then hints and tips for running the adventure. So you can adjust the adventure hook. So if you're running this multiple times, it gives you 2 other ways of running the adventure. I've ran both of them both ways, and if you do the other adventures, it does make it a little bit quicker, which is nice, which I did with a completely inexperienced group. Dungeon factions, there are different things going on. In this main dungeon, you've got 3 different factions, really. You've got Saturis, who is the main bad guy in the main part of the dungeon. You've then got the white that wants something. Again, let the players find that out. As Games Master, you can find that out by reading the adventure yourself. And then obviously the goblins at the back with who they've kidnapped. All of the dungeon is in dark, apart from about, I think it's 3, maybe 4 rooms, which are in light, and it's easily identified by a key. And then from the water point of view, there's 3 different depths of water. You've got 1 droplet, 2 or 3, and that's knee height, waist height, or neck height. And depends on how you want to run it. If you go neck height, I made it neck height for humans. Goblins, halflings, that's swimming height. But they're going to be at disadvantage with dex the deeper it goes, and they may even have -1 to hit if they're fighting the next. Because there's different things that are going to go on, and you've got 2 different random tables for dry rooms compared to wet rooms as well, which is a nice bit of additional thought. Treasure tables here on the right hand side, you've got a D10 for poor treasure and a D10 for normal treasure, and they both go up to 14, and that's because certain rooms and certain encounters will allow them to roll a D10 plus up to 4, which will then bring in some of the really good and interesting sort of magical items that are available that again link back to specific rooms in the dungeon. Say 2 different random encounters, which I've covered. Saturis will come in. So he's the sort of main ongoing threat in here, and he will come out in dry rooms. And then the wet rooms, you've got a cave creeper, both of which are... when I first read this, I was like, this is dangerous. I'm not even sure the players are going to get out of room 2 sufficiently. But I haven't had any party wipes. And in one run through, by room 4, the priest had run out of healing spells, and they still managed to do it. All the random monsters are here as well. I appreciate this. I like it being front-loaded with the random in tables and random monsters next to each other. So I'm not digging into the book. But also, all the monsters and stats you're going to need as you go through are in here. Okay, so we've got a little bit of details here on the arrival, on descriptors of the front of the cave. And then we've got the barrow portal to actually get in, and then the entrance in the first room. So each of the rooms are laid down like this, so it will give you the danger level and then a detailed description of what's going on in the room and any sort of interactions that you need to make. Also, towards the bottom, they should have any sort of things like traps here, percentage chance of the traps going off. Any specific monsters that are in the room, their stats are listed in the room as well. But what this does as well, brilliantly, is it does this zoomed in bit of the map as well. So as you're going through the book, you're not really flicking backwards and forwards, which you can do with certain PDFs or physical copies of books. It gives you the smaller ones. There's a variety of different art in here. All the rooms will either have no random encounters here, or they'll be safe, all the way through to risky, and it gives you the reminder how often you need to roll the random encounters. Most of the ones that say are safe don't roll, or no random encounter, so danger, and that's because that is a specifically important room to the dungeon encounter. Okay, so what it doesn't do is distract the players with some sort of plot-driven good bit, and then also have random encounters on top, because some of these battles are tough. I say rules as read. I didn't think anyone was going to get out of the first room, really, but say no party wipes for me on the several run-throughs. Then finally, once you get to the end of the dungeon, it gives you different ways of getting out for the player. So we've got 5 different ways of leaving. And then once you get back to town, depending on the outcome, will determine how much experience you've got. And then just a sort of close down the adventure and the discussion of what goes on. And we've got come back soon, because Duchy of Black Peak is another adventure being written. And then finally the book's going to close down. We've got these 6 pre-generated characters with all the gears and available slots that they're going to have. So I have actually ran this through with 5, and I don't think it made a huge amount of difference, because it does say run it for 4. It could be easier. I ran it with 5, and if you ask the players, I don't think they thought it was easy either. And then we've just got, say, the inside covers at the back here. We've got the treasure tables and the counter tables, and that is the book. So I'm going to start with what I think is the biggest problem, and that is it's the adventure hook itself. Because if you go with the game as written, the players will decide whether they want to go and rescue this person. They should do, because they're heroes. But what they could do is go, goblins captured someone. I'm quite high in charisma. Let's try the diplomacy route. Because with the map, you're coming into the back entrance. And they might go, actually, let's go to the main entrance and try and do diplomacy with 300 goblins, which is absolutely fine. It's not going to work. You don't need to kill the players. But if you've bought this to run at a convention, and you've got a set 4-hour time slot to run it at the adventure, to run it at the convention, you don't need the players getting distracted by going and doing diplomacy. Also, you don't want the players getting distracted. So as they get to the entrance, there is a lake off to the side with nothing near the lake and some apples bobbing, which is key to later on in the adventure. But what my players did the first time I ran it, they spent 45 minutes technically apple bobbing, then following the route back up, which was the waterfall coming out of the cliff face, to try and swim back up the route, which is absolutely fine if you're doing this as a starting adventure for a campaign. Players can take as long as you want. When you go, we've got 3 hours to run this or 4 hours to run this, depending on how you're going to do it, and we're going to do it as a one-shot, you just need to go, right, you're outside the cave entrance. You can see the apples bobbing. You can clearly see that the gap coming out for the waterfall is not large enough for a human to get in, or looks too tight, or the water flow is too powerful. And you do the backstory of why they're there. And even in that, I would now say, the villagers tried diplomacy. You're the last, line of defense to go in there and deal with this, because it just stops all that. Because if you've got 4 hours to play it, this dungeon, though it's 18 rooms, it is a good 2.5 to 3.5 hours actually in there, because there's lots of puzzles and things to distract the players, and it's beautifully laid out, because you've got the 2 main entrances, but it does sort of zigzag and cross over, so you give the players freedom of choice. Also, they think they've got kind of freedom of choice because they haven't got that many options, but choice is always good for players. But the layout is very good, so if you're an inexperienced games master, or even a player that wants to run something for the first time, because you've only got 18 rooms, it's not a lot to remember. You're doing it as a one-shot, so you can just sort of read it beforehand. I'd suggest obviously you read it several days beforehand and get learn the map and variety of things. But the book is laid out, and each room is so well descripted. it's very, very simple to follow. And it doesn't really matter if someone goes from room 6 to room 17. They can't go from that. So just make an example. But they can jump from one to the other, and you can just go a few pages over, and it's a few lines quite quickly to read across to get to the players. Everyone that recommended me this is absolutely right. It is an absolutely brilliant adventure. And the fact it's got 3 different ways of running it as well. So you could, because if you do it one of the other ways, you're going to miss out a chunk of the cave. So you can just put a wall in. And I managed to do this in a 3-hour session. I ended a 3-hour evening. I was like, could I do this? And I streamlined it. Say I put them in front of the back end, the front entrance, backstoried why they were there. So there was no actual role playing to be there, because this was a new adventure, and it worked perfectly. Every group I've ran this for has thoroughly enjoyed it, because we've got to the end, and one group was completely fresh. They'd never played Shadowdark before, and they've come from 5th edition, and they're really sort of apprehensive on playing Shadowdark. And I was like, do you know what? Let's just do it. Let me run it. Let me see how you get on. So none of them have played it, because Shadowdark's quite light and quick to learn. That's easy for them to go with the players. And more importantly, they got to the end, and I was like, okay, what do you think? And they could not shut up. And that is exactly what you want. And they're like, when can we play again? And I was like, sadly, I can't fit you in, but I'll try and sort of slot you in for other things. So, and that is exactly how role-playing should work, and exactly how a pre-bought first-level adventure should go. You want the players to have a great time. As a games master, you want to have a great time. You want replayability. So if you take a different group, you can run the same adventure or just do a little bit of a tweak. And have that. But the puzzles and the fun the players are going to have in some of the rooms, absolutely amazing. And for something that I thought was so deadly, it just didn't turn out that way, which was good. But so if you are going to pick this up, which I deeply recommend as a games master or as a player that wants to run something, this should be in your arsenal. You should own this. So I don't know when the PDF is, the print on demand is coming, because I never speak to creators before I do this, because I don't kind of want to be influenced in my thoughts or feelings, or on what's going to happen or what changes, because sometimes people speak to me after I've recorded it and go, yeah, now you say that, I'll change this, and I kind of don't, if I know that going in, then I might say the wrong thing. But if you do pick this up, please do consider using my affiliate link. I said I did pay for this out of my own money, but anything generated on the affiliate link I'll put back to more reviews. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.